Today we're going to rank all the media versions of Wukong, the Monkey King, all the ones that appear in movies, series, games, and so on. From the best to the worst. Let's go. These are the versions you see on the screen. The ranking goes from Look at the Monkey all the way down to Little Monkey. I'll rank each media's Wukong by how closely they match the original Journey to the West journal story. This will include much of my opinion. This version is from the 2014 live actions. And in this movie, Wukong doesn't really come from a Chaos Stone, but from an emerald in space, which they call the Moon Crystal, something like that. The computer-generated imagery in this movie is questionable. Wukong doesn't act on his own will or cause chaos by choice. Instead, he's used for King Toro's revenge, who has an army of demons resembling Power Rangers monsters. Erlang Shen is also somewhat involved in the conspiracy against the gods. He doesn't become king of the monkeys, mountain, or flowers and fruits. He gets recruited by the immortal master as a young monkey, which begins his relentless quest for immortality. There's also the story about the journey. He gets the staff from under the waters. He becomes a caretaker of the celestial horses. But unlike the original story, where Wukong has to be stopped by Buddha, even though Buddha is in this story too. Wukong defeats King Toro in the final battle, which is really cool and even resembles an anime. Afterward, Buddha appears and Wukong agrees to imprisonment, though in the original story he tries to escape. This Wukong is pretty funny, though the original Wukong is too. He is a monkey after all. But this movie here has several very comical scenes, so it has an adaptation compared to the original story. But the foundation of Journey to the West is very present in this movie. So that's why I'm going to put it in the great category. I'm asking if you enjoy tier lists and other mythology videos like this. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, share the video, and leave a like as well, because it helps me a lot. And if you can help me even more, become a member of the channel. Seriously, your support would mean a lot. All right, thank you so much to everyone who is a member of the channel, and let's go. The next Wukong here is from Detective Comics, since comics include nearly all mythological beings, not just from Detective Comics, but also from Marvel, at least the most famous ones. The beginning of this Wukong story is a copy-paste from Journey to the West. Sun Wukong is a magical monkey said to have emerged from a rock atop the mountain of flowers and fruit, and he had absorbed the celestial essence. For millennia, he ruled as king of the monkeys, with wild beasts from afar coming to pay homage. However, despite his glory, he had a fear of death. Because of that, he stole the celestial kingdom's peaches of immortality to become immortal. And now, apparently unable to die, he became very powerful and arrogant, even going so far as to steal the powerful Rui staff from Gumbang, the celestial dragon king of the east. He is feared by everyone, and he kept mocking and boasting about his reputation. But he ended up, of course, being humiliated by the Buddha, who buried him under several mountains, and he was freed. And he started accompanying Tripitaka on his pilgrimage to India, where he met Pixie, or also known as Zubat. During the journey, he overcame his fear of death and achieved enlightenment. But from here on, things start to get quite different, because he faces not only the Chinese gods, but also Darkseid. And apparently he gave Darkseid quite a hard time. Wukong's clones played a big role in driving out Darkseid's army, but even so, he ended up taking the Omega Beam right in the face, and along with his army, he disappeared. But actually, he had escaped to the Phantom Zone. There's also a soap opera about a Wukong clone turning renegade, and so on. In theory, this Wukong shares Dojornada's story, except for what happens afterward, when Wukong should theoretically become a Buddha of victory. It wouldn't make sense for him to lose to Darkseid, but I get that Darkseid is strong for Bunei. I found this Wukong here pretty nerfed, so I'll put him in the it's okay tier. This Wukong is from the movie Forbidden Kingdom, featuring Jackie Chan with Jet Li playing Wukong. The idea of this movie is that the main character named Jason is destined to return the staff to Wukong, and by doing so they defeat the Jade Warrior.
A traveler would come to return the staff and would put an end to the kingdom
of the Jade Warrior. Clearly that's inspired by Erlang Shen. I don't know why they didn't just make Erlang Shen the movie's villain. Well, anyway, in this story here, the Jade Warrior ends up challenging Wukong, who had defeated the entire celestial army, and it even mentions Wukong showing up at the banquet of the immortals. But at no point does it say that he ate the peaches of immortality, drank the elixir, or ate the pills of immortality either. It says the Jade Warrior disliked Wukong and challenged him. Everything's fine up to that point, right? But in the middle of this fight, Wukong ends up being tricked by the Jade Warrior, who makes him drop his staff. Then Wukong throws the staff to earth to keep it from the Jade Warrior. And then Wukong is turned into stone and gets trapped there. Wukong, deceived warrior. Wukong, who has an ability called Stone Skin, ironically gets turned into stone. It's a very nerfed version of Wukong, completely adapted. I would even say kind of messed up too. Watching the movie is enjoyable, but to me, Wukong is just a little monkey. Next up is Wukong, from an anime called The God of High School. And Wukong is literally this boy you're seeing on the screen. You can probably guess why he looks that way. The boy's name is Jin Mori, though I'm unsure how to pronounce it. And how this happened is pretty interesting according to my research. Although not much has been revealed yet about the past of the character who is the protagonist, since Jin Mori's memories have been blocked. Apparently he has the same story as Journey, at least the first part, which tells that Wukong was trapped under the mountains by Tathagata, which is another name for Buddha, right? Except that after being trapped inside a mountain, at some point, Wukong's body shrank until it took the shape of a stone, which later took the form of a baby. Eventually, another character named Jin Taijin found him and raised him as Jin. After that, Jin is invited to participate in a tournament called God of High School, where he discovers that he has some supernatural powers, and it's not just him. Apparently, several other characters also have powers. These characters also have connections with other mythological characters. Apparently, it happened, or a version of Ragnarok will occur in the story. Honestly, I'm not really into adapting gods or mythological beings into modern eras. After all, there are a lot of stories like that, right? Percy Jackson, American Gods, and even that Chaos from Netflix and everything else. I'm already tired of that and find it really cliche. And since I didn't find that much about the character, I'm going to leave him in, right? About Wukong from Marvel, I couldn't find that much, but what I did find says the following. A crime boss called himself the modern-day Monkey King. He was tricked by a rival when he tried to steal the staff from the original Wukong, Uri de Gubing. In a cave, he met the original Monkey King's spirit, who, impressed by his boldness, let him take the staff, and at least part of his original powers on the condition that he would be judged. If he was good, he would be released, but if his heart was evil, he would be cast into the 8th city of hell. Deemed evil, he was imprisoned for 15 years until one of Worf's hammers, though I'm not sure what that means. It created a hole that let many demons, including him, escape. Having realized the errors of his ways, he dedicated himself to trying to redeem himself for his past actions and to hunt down the other demons who had escaped. This Wukong isn't the original, but he joined other teams and even fought in a war in Midgard. He helped the Atlas agents defeat Shadir, and when he had the chance, he jumped on her back and kept attacking her. So, well, Neisho Wukong doesn't really get that much focus. They didn't even make much use of him in Marvel. This movie here, which is a Netflix animation, The Monkey King, well, the beginning of the story is very well adapted. That's how Wukong's story goes. He's born from a stone. He attracts the Jade Palace's attention due to lasers coming from his eyes. This scene is great, even in the movie. However, from here things become very different from the original story. In the movie, Wukong, after he is born, he tries to become part of a group of monkeys there on the mountain, but he ends up being left out. He keeps training with some coconuts so he can later try to defeat a kind of demon that is kidnapping the monkeys from that mountain. And in fact, in Journey to the West, there's a part that talks about a demon who is kidnapping some monkeys, but that only happens much later. When Wukong became king of the monkeys, he already had the Ridgegobang staff and was immortal. But Hadi, in the movie, Wukong ends up going after a weapon to defeat that demon there. Here, it turns out to be the Ridgegobang in the king's palace, Dragon of the Oceans. But in the case of the original story, Wukong kind of ends up taking the Ridgegobang from the dragon and even threatens him on top of that. And with that, he ends up getting another magical armor and a pair of shoes that allow him to walk on the clouds. In the movie, Wukong wants to become immortal and defeat demons, so he can become one of the Celestials, one of the gods. In Journey, Wukong initially wants to be a god too. Later, he mainly wants his own title and to be seen as wise like the heavens. Out of curiosity, I watched this movie before making this video, but I have to admit I fell asleep halfway through. But I did have time to see that the monkey ended up going down to the underworld to erase his name from the Book of Life and Death, which also happens in the original tale. So this Wukong does have some similarities with the mythological Wukong, like for example the fact that he is extremely arrogant, which is a very strong characteristic of the original Wukong. But there's the fact that the Ridge-Go-Bang in this movie seems much stronger than Wukong himself, because Wukong, without that staff, he couldn't really do much, no. And that's why I'm going to end up putting him in the little monkey category, because I think he's one of the weakest on this list. Wukong in Smite, like many other characters, essentially shares his mythological story. He was the king of the monkeys, but he also wanted to become immortal. He trained with the Taoist monk, learned the transformation technique, and received the Rui Jingu Bang from Al Quan. He defied death by erasing his name from the Book of Life, and death drawing the Jade Emperor's attention. As in the original story, the Emperor, wanting to control the Monkey King, made him a stable caretaker there in heaven. But Wukong didn't like that at all. He became furious, claimed to be great and wise like the heavens, and declared war on the Celestials. For this betrayal, he was captured and imprisoned under a mountain for 5 centuries. I'm not sure if the one who did this to this Wukong here was Buddha himself, but I think so, right? Because the story is just like Journey to the West. And after a long time, he kind of ended up being rescued by Xuanzang, who was a monk looking for disciples to protect his legendary journey to the West, to collect the sutras from India. Wukong agreed to serve him, but the Buddha put a golden ring on his head so Xuanzang could control him. In the original story, though, Guan Yin did this. With 3 more helpers, they faced many trials, but ultimately achieved enlightenment. Because of Wukong's design, people say he's awesome and very faithful, making him a true monkey king. This Wukong appears in Nezha Reborn, and he was kind of a guy who had a really cool mask, and many believed that actually he would be a monkey. He was always helping Nezha's reincarnation in the movie. At one point, in a great scene, he reveals he's Wukong, making this a modern take on Wukong. This movie features Moth, and Wukong's outfit resembles the Magnates. I think he's really cool, but since it's a modern reinterpretation, I'll put him in the It's Okay category. This next Wukong here is also a live action. It's from a 1986 series. Incredibly, for me, it's the most faithful and possibly scariest adaptation of Wukong, because this Wukong is really bizarre. It's a 1986 series with some odd special effects, but it adapts the story faithfully and stays true to the original. The beginning, in fact, is a stone being struck by the wind, and from that, Wukong is born. He finds other monkeys and they discover a waterfall. Then one monkey speaks to Wukong. If he got through the waterfall, he would become king there. After passing through the waterfall and returning, he becomes the king of the monkeys. So everyone goes into that cave that's behind the waterfall. They create a kingdom and live happily until one of the monkeys dies. And from there, Wukong sets out on a journey to become immortal. He ends up finding a Taoist master, exactly as described in the book. He meets a woodcutter there who tells him where the Taoist master is. Wukong becomes immortal for the first time and learns the 72 transformations. There's a hilarious scene in the series where Wukong tries to eat noodles but can't. And then a guy shows up who tries to help him, but actually he ends up giving Wukong some pepper instead. Then he runs away from there. Next up is Wukong from Mobile Legends, or actually Sam from Mobile Legends. In case you haven't noticed, Mobile Legends is basically a mobile version of League of Legends before there was an official mobile League of Legends. Well, according to the story, Sam was an anthropomorphic monkey who was supernaturally born from a rock. He was always extraordinarily strong, but one day the gods suddenly restrained him. Under a mountain, unable to move even an inch, he watched time change and the world be transformed by it. Snow covered his exposed body parts outside the mountain, but they never froze his heart, which was filled with enthusiasm for freedom. When the chance arose, he yelled freedom and escaped his imprisonment. He looked up, laughed at the gods, and left. But he eventually returned to Cadia's riverlands where he was born. There, the stone-born monkey with an unbreakable soul would start his legend again. As you can see, there's no Buddha in the story, and it doesn't explain how he left the mountain. I'm not sure if a monk like Tripitaka freed him, but either way, he's still arrogant. In a way, it's a good adaptation of Wukong for mobile legends. But since some important parts of the story were missing, I'll let it slide. It's just okay. And Sun Wukong also appears as a kind of demon in Shin Megami Tensei. In theory, he would have a past as the Journey to the West newspaper, but apparently he later becomes a demon or secondary persona. He is very mischievous and rebellious, two strong traits. Also about Wukong, but since I couldn't find much information about him, I'll leave it at maybe for now. I discovered Wukong from Kung Fu Panda, who I hadn't known existed. While making this list, it's like a wild Woody Woodpecker version of Wukong, who appears in those series. It's from Kung Fu Panda, Paws of Destiny, I think. Second season, episode 2. In this episode, Po and other little pandas arrive where Wukong is while it's raining. He invites them to stay overnight at his hotel or house. I can't recall exactly which. When they're about to go to sleep, Wukong starts preaching. He messes with them because he calls himself the immortal trickster, even when he introduces himself there. To the pandas, one says, "Wow, you're the Wukong from that legend." Wukong replies, "No, that Wukong is a total lunatic. I met him. He's definitely the real Wukong. He can be intimidating, so people end up leaving his area." And since Wukong is trapped there, in the area that contains that whole hotel, Wukong, they kind of adapt his trickster side much more than his arrogant and fighter side. In a way, I think he's great for what he sets out to do. Next is the Wukong from League of Legends, this Wukong here. He was part of a tribe of Vastayas, which would be kind of a tribe of anthropomorphic animals there in the League of Legends universe. He was from the Shimon, who resemble monkeys. And just like Wukong from the Journey to the West, this Wukong here was extremely arrogant and very tricky. So much so that he ended up deceiving others. There, people were saying that a dragon was coming that would burn all their vegetation and everything else. When people saw there was no dragon, they expelled Wukong from their tribe. And with that, Wukong started kind of challenging everyone he came across, until he ends up attracting, kind of unintentionally in quotes, a group of Noxians near his tribe. Then those people wipe out his tribe, and then Wukong sets out on a journey where he ends up meeting Master Yi, or Mestre Yi, the master of Wuju, which is kind of a martial art there, also from the League of Legends universe. Wukong attacks Master Yi, but Yi quickly ends his meditation, defeats Wukong in seconds, and resumes meditating. And after bothering Master Yi a lot, Yi ends up accepting Wukong as his disciple. So it's just like Journey to the West. Of course not. After all, you can't put Buddha in League of Legends, at least I don't think so. But I think that for the League of Legends universe, this Wukong makes a lot of sense. Master Yi essentially takes on the Taoist monk role from the Journey story, which I think is great, for what the League of Legends universe suggests. Next is Wukong from Naruto, a tailed beast. Honestly, I don't have much to say about this one. Aside from his name, Son Goku, Wukong in Japanese, he shares little with Journey to the West's Wukong. It's just a reference, and I think they did this much more as a reference to Dragon Ball than as a reference to the actual Wukong from the story. So, it'll stay as Little Monkey, let's go. This next one is from Apocalypse, a spin-off of Shumatsu no Valkyrie. And so, guys, I don't know the story of this Wukong, but let's judge here by the appearance. If I showed you this here and you knew he was part of Shumatsu no Valkyrie, and not even that this video here is a theory about Wukong, would you guess that this character is Wukong? No, right? If it were a Wukong reincarnation like in The God of High School, I might understand, but it would still seem strange. But it's hard to accept that he's literally Wukong, right? He just looks like a disco Wukong. Just a reminder, right? Wukong's a monkey, right? So why doesn't he have any hair? Again, it makes no sense. I don't really know what his story is, if there's an explanation for why he looks like that or not. But I'm going to leave it as a little monkey because, come on, there's just no way. If you search for Wukong in Ragnarok, the monkey isn't there. That seems like an issue to me. Oh, I nearly forgot about Monkey King from Dota. I don't play Dota, so I don't really know his lore, but from what I've seen, it's very similar to the one from Mobile Legends. It says that Monkey King, or Wukong, was trapped under a mountain because of what he did to some gods. And then he was freed. He started following a monk, an acolyte, and ended up atoning for his sins. But apparently, he never stopped being mischievous and kept mocking the gods in some way. I think he's great for the Dota universe too. Next is Wukong from Dragon Ball, actually Goku, as most people already know. Goku was inspired by the legend of Wukong, at least the classic in the very beginning of Dragon Ball Z, because after that it just turned into a brawl, and everyone became a fighter. God is Super Saiyan Blue Ultra Instinct. And then let's keep going. But the classic one, it's clear this is heavily inspired by Journey to the West, where we have Bulma taking on the role of Xuanzang, Goku taking on the role of Wukong, Oolong taking on the role of Zhubaji, and in Oolong's case, when Wukong and Bulma meet him, he's kidnapping some girls from a village, something that has a lot to do with Zhubaji, because he was also a being who transformed a lot and was extremely perverted. Xiao Jin becomes Yamcha, and Erlang Shen becomes Tian Xinhan. And even the transformation of the Uzuru ends up being heavily inspired by the fact that Wukong could grow in size whenever he wanted. In the first movie I mentioned, the live-action one about Wukong. In the final battle with the Bull King, he transforms into a giant monkey, much like the Uzaru. Goku is an adaptation of Wukong, but he can't really be ranked alongside him since he's not actually the monkey. It's true he started with a monkey tail, but he's not the monkey. Later, he developed his own personality. Wukong from Black Myth. Wukong, specifically the Eli from the start, isn't the same Wukong from Journey to the West. Later, we play as a different Wukong. He has the arrogance that Wukong needs to have. He has Wukong's boldness. He's a trickster with all the powers of Wukong from Journey to the West. And he has the many hairs, and he has the stone skin, and he can even walk on clouds. The only thing that gets me about this Wukong, it's set after Journey to the West ends. He still ends up having that golden headband around his head, which Guan Yin put on him during the journey so that Xuanzang could control him. But in theory, after Wukong became a Buddha, he lost that headband. They likely kept Wukong's headband on to simplify the plot, since without it, no one could defeat him. Black Myth is a great adaptation covering several parts of Journey to the West in the game, so there's no way not to put it in. Look at the monkey. If you like this video, do you have any ideas for the next tier list video? Leave them in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and get hyped. See you next time.